Get in further perspectives at this point from Dov Zakhem, former Under-Secretary of Defense in the George W. Bush administration and currently Senior Advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Good to have you with us. Thanks very much for being here. I want to begin by asking you for your comments on America's position at this point. How far do you think the United States should be and would be willing to go? Because a lot would depend on that.
I don't think we're going to support the Israelis, offensively. I think what will happen and what's already happening is we will help defend them. Mr. Trump has said as much. He's also made it clear that he will continue to provide military equipment to the Israelis. And as he put it, they're very good at using it. So no offensive support, but defensive support. And of course, as you just heard, the difference between what the Israelis are doing to the Iranians and what the Iranians are doing to Israel is that the Israelis are targeting the missiles facilities, the nuclear facilities, and decapitating the leadership, at least in one case where they hit a leader in his flat and the rest of the building was fine. On the other hand, the Iranians are firing at Israel, at any target in Israel. They're trying to hit Jerusalem, which actually makes no sense at all, given that the Mosque of Omar, or the mosque on Temple Mount, however you want to call it, is the third most important shrine in Islam. So why they're going after that one or taking risks with it is beyond me. They're going, of course, after Tel Aviv, and they're literally firing. They fired over 100 ballistic missiles that are targeting civilians, and they've hit some, and they've injured some, and they've killed some. So there really is a difference. But the United States I cannot expect or believe that we will support Israel in any kind of offensive manner.
Right. Interesting that you say that. I also want to ask you and understand from you what you make of the messaging coming in from both Iran and Israel at this point.
Well, the Iranians have to say that they'll retaliate. Remember, the reason the Israelis have been so vehement about Iran is that for decades, Iran has called them a cancer that has to be exterminated. So when Netanyahu says that this is an existential threat, all he's doing is repeating what the Iranians have said for years. The Israelis clearly want to eliminate Iran's ability to fire a nuclear weapon at the country. The Iranians continue to say that they will hit back. They will hit back hard. I don't know how they do hit back hard, because the Israelis are going to continue to go after particularly their ballistic missile capabilities, which makes it very, very hard for the Iranians to do more and more damage. The more ballistic missile facilities that are hit, the more difficult it is for Iran to really retaliate. And the other thing, of course, is that the Israelis have made it clear that they had Mossad people in Iran, and that should really scare the Iranians, because they saw what happened in Lebanon and what the Israelis did to Hezbollah, and now it looks like the Israelis are doing the exact same thing, putting people on the ground that the Iranians cannot identify who are helping them out. And of course, we know very well, and again, your correspondent just pointed that out, the Israelis aren't going after Iranian citizens for a very simple reason. There's a lot of sympathy for Israel in Iran. It's the Ayatollahs, the mullahs, who are vehemently anti-Israel, but of course, they have been crushing the morale of the people for a long, long time. The economy is in deep, deep trouble. And so it's not surprising that so many Iranians don't really feel any hostility toward Israel. They're probably much more hostile to their own government.
Israel said earlier about Operation Rising Lion that it was being planned for a while. And we also have been talking about the timing of this escalation. What do you make of that?
Well, the Israelis waited not only for the 60 days, which Mr. Trump had said 60 days or else there'll be real trouble. And of course, there now is. But remember also, yesterday, the International the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Administration, basically said that for the first time, they said it in 20 years, that Iran was violating the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And people are speculating that Iran might actually pull out of the NPT. North Korea doesn't belong to it. The others don't belong to it. But Iran did. And when you're part of the NPT, you are committed not to develop nuclear weapons. So clearly they were lying to everyone uh, because they said they were not developing nuclear weapons. And then the IAEA, which certainly is not particularly partisan toward Israel or anybody else, it's the United Nations organization, said no, the Iranians have been violating the NPT. Those two things, plus the Israeli intelligence, which clearly was telling them that the Iranians were getting ever closer to building a bomb. I think the Israelis used the number 15 bombs. No Israeli leader, not just Netanyahu, no Israeli leader could sit for that and risk a nuclear attack on a country that's so small that could have been wiped out with one or two bombs.
Right, and speaking also of what all of this really means for West Asia going forward, as of now, where do you think things are headed, and is this going to be a turning point for the region?
Well, it could be. It very much depends on how the Iranians respond. The Israelis have said they're going to keep attacking. So if the Iranians continue to respond, the Israelis will simply continue to attack. That is extremely dangerous for Jordan, which already has said they will not allow Iranian missiles or drones to fly over their territory. It's dangerous for Egypt because the oil tankers are not going to be able to go through the Suez Canal anymore. They're not going to go into the Arabian Sea. The tankers won't, and cargo, the container ships won't. So, for the countries that depend on oil coming out of the region, that becomes a big problem. And so you look at Egypt, you look at Jordan. Saudi Arabia has officially said that officially condemned what Israel did, but on the other hand, it doesn't want instability either. And so this thing could really, really destabilize the region uh, unless, frankly, the Iranians recognize that there's just no point in pushing ahead for a nuclear capability that, in any event, would get the Saudis and the Emiratis in particular to build their own nukes. Who needs that?
Right, and taking a cue from what you just said, the significance of the Natanz nuclear facility being targeted and what the IAEA chief has said just a short while back about the situation at the Natanz facility.
Look, the Israelis are going to try to attack those facilities, no question about it. And they will probably not stop until they are convinced that Iran no longer has the ability to both produce nuclear weapons and mate them, MATE, mate them with ballistic missiles. That's the threat that Israel faces, and they are simply not going to allow it to happen. Now, Mr. Trump has told the Iranians, look, this could go on unless you're ready to negotiate. And Steve Witkoff, his close friend and his top negotiator, is ready to meet with the Iranians still. Now, if the Iranians reach some agreement with the United States, and it's clear that they're not going to develop a nuclear weapon, that changes the whole picture. But it's up to the Iranians.
All right, and we were discussing just a while ago with our correspondent who's been tracking those developments at the United Nations about the talks, about a sense of pessimism also attached with the kind of intervention that one would look at, given what the past conflicts have looked like. Your assessment of that?
Well, look, this is very different from previous conflicts. There's no question about it. Even the last Israeli attack, which was a response to Iranian attacks, was fundamentally on their air defenses. Now, they've knocked out most of their air defenses. That's one of the reasons, I should have added that earlier. It wasn't just the 60 days and wasn't just the IAEA. It was the fact that the Israelis knew this was, if ever there was a time to attack Iran, it was now because they had taken out those air defenses. But previous Israeli attacks were very, very different. This one is, as I said, it involved decapitation. It involved getting rid of the head of the army, who was number two under the supreme leader. It involved getting rid of the head of the IRGC, the basically the shock troops of Iran. It involved getting rid of the two top scientists, nuclear scientists. This was something fundamentally different from anything the Israelis had tried before. And it's clear that the reason they did it is they want to send a message to Iran. They are simply not going to tolerate a nuclear weapon. Now, Netanyahu has been saying this for years, but now he's showing that he really does mean it. And if I were advising the Ayatollah Khamenei, I would say sit down with Witkoff or get your people to and cut a deal that guarantees that you won't build a nuclear weapon. And that will put a stop to all of this very quickly.
Right. So let me ask you this then. How optimistic are you about a de-escalation at this point?
Well, it's hard to tell, partly because the Iranians always use much stronger language than their actual practice. That's number one. Number two is, do they activate all their proxies? After all said and done, they have proxies in Iraq. They've got the Houthis. They even still have a remnant of Hezbollah. And of course, they've got Hamas, which is still fighting a war against Israel. So they've got proxies, and it's not clear whether they will ramp up proxy attacks. Again, it really comes down to what the Iranians really deep down believe. You can't just take what they say. You have to see what they do. And in this case, we just don't know. If the Iranians signal that they are ready to talk to the United States, they're not talking to Israel, they're talking to the United States. If they're ready to do that, that becomes, to me, the first indication that this thing may actually settle down.
We're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for being here and sharing your perspectives. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.